Welcome back to the Ex-Homeschoolers Club. I'm your host, Jacob Gooden, and I'm stoked. Today, I'm joined by my friend Emily. I know her as Emily Shields, but I know that is no
Hey.
longer her actual name as she's gotten married.
That is no longer my name.
But Emily, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited. I've seen so many of my friends on this, and I feel honored that I get to be a part of it.
Very cool. Well, I'm stoked to have you. And yeah, tell me a little bit about your homeschool journey because I feel like we were friends, but I feel like we were friends from kind of a distance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we were like friends of
Yeah.
friends. Like we were at the same parties, and both of our mutual like kind of bestest friend is Carrie France, which you had on here. Yeah, so we were kind of friends. Like at parties, I would talk to you and stuff, but I think mainly when we kind of got a little bit older, I was talked to you a little bit more at like a friend's wedding. We hung out there, we danced a little bit, and things like that. But yeah, uh, I I did start homeschooling a little later than some people. I started when I was entering the fourth grade. So kind of like you, I was in the private school world, and it was a big transition for sure. Kind of like you said, where you knew what the real world was like, and then suddenly you're like, what the heck? I'm at home now. Like, what is going on? And you missed it, and I missed it a lot. But yeah.
Yeah. So, do you know why your parents decided to pull you out of private school to homeschool you?
Yes. So I was not very good in school. I would I'd zone out a lot, and I learned that I had different learning disabilities that would kind of make it a little bit tough to keep up with like the classroom setting. And when I was in third grade, that's when it reached the point where I was already taking kind of like special ed-ish classes. And just to like try to keep up, they wanted me to go to summer school. They wanted me to see different uh, go into like a different special classroom and be held back, like kind of things for people who are more mentally
Hmm.
challenged than say I was. But back then there wasn't really resources for teachers or like having more inclusive classrooms and stuff, and the teacher ratio was a lot different than it is now. Now I feel like it's a lower student to teacher. Back then it was just like, let's put as many kids as we can in the classroom, and so there wasn't really enough time for me, and uh, they're basically kind of like giving up on me. That's what my parents would say, that the school system was giving up on me, and they knew that I was smart. Like I could learn things at home, and I would get it. Like I would get my schoolwork, or not schoolwork, but like homework a little bit early before the other kids. Like I would get it like instead of getting it on Monday and working on it for the rest of the week like normal kids would do, I would get it the Friday before, so I'd have the whole weekend to also work on it, just so I can like kind of keep
Yeah.
up. And they would see that I was trying so hard, I just couldn't
Hmm.
do it. And so um, they made the decision to take me out of school and to yeah, to try to work on like how we can actually have her learn. And homeschooling seemed like the best option for us. I do have an older brother who they asked if he wanted to be homeschooled. He's about 7 years older than me, so I think he was, I don't know, like middle schoolish age or something, maybe going into high school. And he's like, oh heck no, I do not want to be homeschooled. So that's always interesting to have one kid homeschooled and one kid not homeschooled.
Yeah.
So I still got to see some of that world of what school is like because of my brother. But yeah, it was very beneficial for me because I could work at my own pace and do my favorite thing about homeschooling is that you can learn what your super interest is,
Yes.
um like in history class, instead of just reading the chapter on whatever, I don't know, the Industrial Revolution or something, reading that chapter and then you move on. It's like if there's some little nugget that you really like, your parents will say, let's dive into that. Let's learn
Right.
so much more about this one little nugget, so you have like a way better perspective in the sense, rather than just jamming every, like, I don't know, like every date and every fact that they can
Right.
into you. Let's try to focus in on like something so you actually feel like you learned something. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
No, I tell people that all the time because like I got really into pirates when I was a kid and my parents were like, "Let's just
Oh
do
yeah.
history around pirates." And then I had my favorite pirate
Mhm.
who was Calico Jack, and like I knew so much about him as a pirate, and he was obviously an infamous pirate, but he wasn't like most people know Blackbeard, they know Davy Jones, they know kind of like
Yeah, yeah.
they know Jack Sparrow, um, even though that's not historically an accurate person, but they know kind of the basis of like a lot of pirates, but they don't know a very specific one. So like, yeah, like you said, it's like you hook onto that one nugget,
Mhm.
and then your parents are just like, oh yeah, like we can find more books on this person, or we can find more information, or go to this museum, or whatever. That is a super powerful thing with homeschooling. And yeah, and especially if you, like you said, you had some learning disabilities, and I didn't, but my sister did, and she had dyslexia. And watching her try to like work through things was so interesting because I just never struggled with that kind of stuff. Like I could read a book. It was totally easy for me to just like sit down and power through a book.
Mhm.
But for her it just took so much hours longer.
Yeah.
And so that's cool that you had parents who saw that you were like, I want to learn and I want to figure this out, but like it's just the system isn't working to get there
Mhm.
yet. And so was there anything in particular that they did that you feel like kind of unlocked like that ability to learn, even maybe not at a faster pace, but just kind of like it made more sense?
Yeah, so my parents, they both they're preschool teachers, and that's how they met originally. They weren't preschool teachers when I was being homeschooled, but just when they first met, they were. So they had like a base of like the the child brain and like human development and things like that. So uh, my mom has always been very creative on how we can teach the preschoolers like fun different things. So she just kind of elevated that. And you know, if you make anything into a game, it's just way better. So with say with my spelling words, I also was pretty dyslexic when I was younger, so that made it hard. But my mom, she would help with that, and like with all my spelling words that I would have, she would put it on like a piece of paper, and she would cut them in random places, like either in half or like cut the ed at the end or whatever. And then she made it into a game where I had to try to match them up, kind of like a puzzle, to like make my spelling word and
Right.
just learn things in a different way like that. Or she made little silly rhymes or silly songs with things because I was very I connected to music a lot. So I still remember
Hmm.
some of like the songs that I still like do in my head sometimes when I'm like either spelling a certain word or just things of that nature. Or um, kind of like your sister, where I had a really hard time reading. Like I could read a paragraph and then you ask, "Hey, Emily, what did you read?" I had no idea. I could not tell you what it
Hmm.
was after. Like my reading comprehension was not good. They learned that I was more of an auditory learner, where if my mom read books that was way above my like reading level, then I could get it, I understood it, and then I would do my
Right.
reports that way. And so it was just cool things like that. Granted, like I still had to learn like how to read in at my comprehension level, but just doing things
Right.
at a different pace type of thing.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because like yeah, my sister was the same way. Like she was very auditory and yeah, had like the little game. Like she did this whole thing of like it was like with your hand, it was like one way was like balloons and then pigs and like there, there's little
Mm-hmm.
sayings and whatever. But yeah, I think it's interesting. So like then when you navigate after like homeschool into like maybe more of a college experience or just even like the real world, sometimes like I I know for her, like, she had to go find textbooks and things where it was like, "Okay, how do I find my college textbooks in an auditory form? Or how do I turn them into an auditory
Mm-hmm.
form?" Or, like, um, things like that where it's like, for me, it was, like, a no-brainer, right? I didn't even think about it because that wasn't my struggle, but it was just I don't know, it's interesting to kind of, like, hear people's perspective, and then also, like, has anything shifted? Like, I don't know, do you read books now? Or
Oh
are you
my gosh.
still very much more like an audiobook podcast kind of person?
Now I am a super reader. I read 24/7.
Okay.
Like anytime I'm at work, I have a break, I read. When my baby's taking a nap, I go read. So it's so funny because when I was younger, yeah, I didn't really like reading because it was so hard. But then with a different like kind of like therapies that I did, like I did like a vision therapy that would help with my tracking, like finding the words, because that was one of my issues. My eyes would jump all around the page. So it made it
Right.
really difficult for reading. So things like that, they did help me, and I kind of found little other tricks that would just help me. So now I don't really notice any of those disabilities too much, which is kind of cool. I was able to work around it from my own way to do things, even in my day to day job. And I feel like homeschooling
Yeah.
definitely helped that, where you don't have to do things that are like the cookie cutter way, but you can do things as long as you get to the main
Mhm.
goal, just do it your own way type of thing.
Yeah. No, and that's what's cool too. Yeah. And to your point, it's cool to hear too that you're like, I once you figure out those like tricks and those tools and you figure out your learning style, well then eventually you get to the point where you would never even know,
Hmm.
right? Like you can read a book just fine
Yeah.
now, right? And you did classes to track. And so it's like now it's like you probably don't look at a page the same way you did when you
Oh,
were
definitely not.
first kind of like figuring out like, oh my gosh, this is like utter
Hmm.
chaos, right? This is absolute hell for me to try to figure
Yeah.
out. So that's cool to hear because I think a lot of times people get discouraged because they either maybe didn't get diagnosed as a kid properly or didn't have parents who really helped in their education or like took notice of
Hmm.
that kind of thing. And so now they're full-fledged adults and they still struggle with it, and instead of being like, okay, let's figure out a way to do this, they'll just throw books out the window,
Yeah.
right? They're like, that's I don't read because it's too hard for me. And so yeah. So anyway, highly encourage parents and kids to there's answers out there. You can solve a lot of things. And there's so much more knowledge now
So much
to be
more.
able to
Yeah.
like figure out, yeah, what's going on with you. And
And I feel like now it's so much more common to have something just like,
yes.
a little off in a good way, Almost everyone has a little, at least something, and they're more free to talk about it. And in the back, like back in the day,
Yeah.
it was like mortifying. Like I didn't want any of my friends to know that I was having a hard time with this or struggling with this. But now everyone is, I feel, just so much more open with everything about just who they are. There's not as much secrets,
Yeah.
which I love.
That's good. That's good because yeah. Well, and the more you talk to people, the more you realize, yeah, we're all this. Yeah,
All the
like you
same.
said, we're all the same. We all got our own problems, and like the only way to really work through it is, yeah, you got to be open about it. Because the longer you store that stuff inside of you, it's like that serves
Yeah.
nobody, you know. Anyway, so okay, so you were then homeschool. So fourth grade, did you went all the way through high
All the
school
way through high school.
homeschooling?
Yeah. My parents,
Okay.
when I was going into middle school, my parents had asked me if I wanted to go into middle school because they felt maybe I could like attempt it. Even though I think they knew I was gonna say no, it was just kind of like giving me the offer. And I told them, like, the
Right.
only thing that I want is I want lunchtime, because in movies, like everything happened in the lunch period. So I wanted to go to lunchtime with friends,
Yeah.
and I wanted a locker because everything great happens in front of a locker. So and
Yes.
so for Christmas that year, my parents bought me my own locker. It was like a bright lime green locker. It was huge. Um, if you For people who watch High School Musical, it's like the size of Sharpay's locker, the bright pink one, how she has like double locker. For those who know, they know. But yeah, so once I got that locker, I was like, okay, I don't have to go to regular school anymore. I'm fine doing this. And there was a point that I did stuff, like I did go inside my locker and close the door because I was like, I'm like a nerd and I'm stuffed in my locker, because I was that sad because I just wanted to be like a normal school person. And then my brother walked in and he's like, that doesn't happen at school. I don't know what you're thinking, but it doesn't happen. But yeah, so
Yeah, we have this weird glamorized like version of what public school looked like, I
mhm.
think. And yeah, it is movies like High School Musical definitely paint a much more glamorized version of what high school would have looked like. But that's so funny. Yeah, I never asked for a locker, but that's hilarious. That's
Yeah, I
hilarious
still
to
have
know.
it. It's in,
Um,
and I would always put my schoolwork in it because that's what you're supposed to do with lockers. But
yeah,
I still have it. It's in my
right.
garage. And my husband, we've had a few rounds of garage sales, and every time he's like, are you sure you don't want to get rid of it? Like, do we still need that? And I said, I got this locker so I didn't have to go to school. This is the best thing ever. And someday our
Yeah.
kids are going to think this is the coolest thing ever. But yeah, who can say they have a locker in their garage? Not too many people. So I own that.
Yeah, not too many people. That's funny. So okay, so following homeschool, did you after graduation, college, job, what was the kind of the path
So
there?
after graduation, I didn't really fully know what I wanted to do. So I just did what most people do, and they just, try a few things at community college. And I tried a few different classes. Most of them were all fun, like theater ish or kind of child development things, because I would nanny and babysit in high school. So I'm like, oh, that's easy. I know kids. I'll do that. And I tried to have a few normal classes. So I tried to take a Spanish class, and it was a film studies class. And for both those classes, I realized this is too intense. I could not keep up. I could not handle this. And it is intimidating having so many students in your class that just seem to get it. And I just could not get it. That it was just really overwhelming to me. I mean, in homeschooling you have
Mhm.
classes and stuff with other kids, but at max is like 10 to 11 kids usually, there's not too
Right.
many in there. But then suddenly you're in a classroom that has, people that just graduated, but also since community college, it has so many other age ranges and there's like 30 kids in your
Right.
class, and or kids, not
Yeah.
adults in your class. And it's just very overwhelming, and I could not keep up with it. And so I left those classes and was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And since I like child development, I stuck with those classes because they made sense to me. I could actually do them. And I was a preschool teacher for about 5 years. And then I stopped that, and now I work at an electrical company, the same that my father works at. And you never know where you're gonna go in your life. I didn't think I was gonna work someplace like that, but it's money, and that's what I want. So that's
Yeah.
where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
that
sometimes
was
a job's
definitely
just a
not
job, you know?
college material. I was just trying to graduate. We're still just amazed that I graduated.
Mhm.
So
Hey, you know, yeah, it's not for everybody, but it's I don't know. I didn't have a terrible college experience. I purposefully chose a college that had it was a smaller student
oh,
size,
that's
and
good.
so classes tended to be a little bit more in that average what we were used to, right?
Hmm.
Maybe 15 kids. And then there was a few classes that were like 50 kids, and those classes were overwhelming because yeah, it was really easy to all of a sudden feel like I'm very behind, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, and going to a more traditional college, I mean, I didn't have there wasn't too many people at that school that were older. Like I know, yeah, VC, Oxnard College, yeah, you got people all over the spectrum.
Yeah.
You got high school kids to like 40-year-old adults plus taking classes to get an education. And it's like it's cool, but it's definitely a different learning experience than like being at a university, right? Where it's
Hmm. You're all
typically
in
gonna
like the
be that
same
like
ish,
18 to
yeah,
22,
age range.
right? And you're all living together and that kind of thing. So it definitely was a challenge. It was an adjustment to go into that for
Hmm.
sure. But that was why I was like, I gotta choose a school that I feel like I can be more familiar with. Because there was a couple of schools I looked at and I was like, they're just massive. And I was like, I'm a number at that
Yeah.
point. It's like I can't be a number. I gotta be a person. Um, so well, that's cool. And okay, so one of the things that you had brought up in kind of our pre-show
Hmm.
prep was you wanted to talk about senior ditch day. So I
Okay.
didn't do a senior ditch day,
Well, I mean, who
but
does?
I
You're
want to hear
homeschooled. Who's
what
gonna
yours
do
looked
that?
like. Exactly. My senior ditch day was just a normal
Yeah.
Tuesday. Like
Yeah. Okay. So
so tell me a little bit about
kind of
that.
like what we said before, how you learn everything from TV and movies, uh, because since we couldn't actually experience what was going on in the real world, sometimes that was our worldview, is like these movies, these TV shows where it's like, this is what they do, this must be real, this must be true. So everything had senior ditch day. And so me and my friends, we wanted to also do a senior ditch day, and we're like, how are we going to do that? Also, what are we going to do? And only one of us has a car, so we have to figure this out somehow. And uh, so we've you've mentioned this a few times on your podcast with other people. Group solutions, which was kind of like our version of going to school every other Friday. We went to some place, had about like 3 classes, and we were all together. And and we had periods, so that was like our school. So we decided, well, it has to be when we were supposed to be going to school. So it has to be on a group solutions day because we're not going to ditch at home. So we have to ditch from going somewhere. But it only counts if you first go to the place. That's what we thought. So we went to group solutions to our schooling. We stepped foot there and then we left because we had to actually ditch it.
Right.
Yeah. But unbeknownst to my friends, I told my mom about the senior ditch day because I tell my mom everything. And she was totally chill with it. She didn't care. But she did say, well, a lot of those moms in there, those are my friends. And your teachers are my friends. And they're going to wonder why me, your mom is there, but you're not there. And I don't want to lie to them. So you have to call them and tell them that you're not going to be there. And I was like, Mom, this is not a ditch day now. I don't want to call my teachers. And she's like, these are my friends.
It's just
You
an
have to call
excused
them.
absence at this
Yeah.
point.
I did what my mom wanted me to do, but I didn't tell my friends this, and I still count it in my heart that it was a senior ditch day. So we did our ditch day. We ditched school to do schoolish activities. This is so homeschool. We drove to LA and we were gonna go to museums.
Okay.
So that's what we did. We went to the Holocaust Museum, the Science Center Museum, because they're having an exhibit on King Tut, and we were so interested because we're just so fucking homeschooled. And then we went to LACMA, the LA Museum of Modern Art. I think that's what it's called. But something amazing happened at the Museum of Modern Art. So you know how at museums you kind of have to follow a pattern, like when you're in there, like you have to all walk kind of the same direction, to follow the whole art and
Right.
stuff. Since it was the middle of school day, there weren't too many people there, and I was being hilarious and making comments on the art and stuff, and my friends were laughing. And then it turns out in the same room as us, there was Nick Jonas, Kevin Jonas, and a random friend. So not Joe was there, but they were in the room with us as well. And again, this is a museum. You just follow the path. So we weren't stalking them. We were following the path. And then we get to one room that had like a statue in like the middle of the room. And we were all staring at the statue. And I said something funny. And Nick Jonas laughed. I don't know what I said. I blacked out. And my friends don't remember either because they were just too amazed that Nick Jonas laughed. And we were like, oh my God, he laughed. We're in. This is amazing. And then their phone rang and they're like, oh, Kevin, we have to leave. And then Nick was like, okay, yeah, we're going to go. So then they left, and I think they were doing like some thing. I don't think it was a concert or anything. But yeah, so that was pretty amazing. So I could say like my senior ditch day was pretty memorable. And I do count it as a ditch day, even though I did call my teachers.
No,
but
that's 100% a ditch day. I love that you guys went to a museum though. That
yeah,
cracks me up.
three, and we were
Yes,
so
3 different
excited to go to
museums.
the museum. We didn't
That is
do
such a
anything
homeschooler
bad.
move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a super homeschooler move. But yeah, I mean, how many people can say on their ditch day they ran into 2 of the
Not
Jonas
too
Brothers,
many.
arguably the
Yeah.
2 best Jonas Brothers?
Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah, Joe, you
But
lost your spot. But
yeah, exactly. You missed out on the opportunity to laugh at Emileigh's joke. So,
I know it was obviously
you
really
know,
good. I don't wish I knew what it was.
exactly.
I have no idea.
Exactly. Nick thought it was funny.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I don't remember doing anything like that. I remember doing special stuff senior year, but
But
like,
yeah, for like
yeah,
senior
I
year
don't remember doing a
graduation,
ditch
right?
day.
Did you do the
Yeah,
Disney night?
yeah, we did
Because I think
Disneyland
you're just
and
like 1 year younger than me, so you weren't in my year of doing that kind
yeah,
of
because
stuff.
you guys graduated 2013
Yeah,
and I was
2013.
2014. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, we still did cool things
yeah,
on our senior year, which is really cool because I know a lot of other kids, like, they didn't do really anything other than maybe one, like, say, grad night somewhere, and then they just had graduation and that was it. But I thought it was so cool how we had a bunch of different activities, like we would go bowling or we'd have game night at someone's house. Granted, there's only like, I think like 13 of us in the graduating class.
yeah.
I don't know, it felt like we were like a big community, or not big, but like a community of like, we're doing this together and we don't have to be separate just
Yeah.
because we're homeschooled. Like, you know, don't have to be
Yeah.
separate. So
I
that was
mean,
really cool.
I got asked a lot when I got to college, like, "Oh, so graduation, like, was it just your parents, like, handing you a piece of paper, basically?" And I was like, "No, like, I had, like, a graduation," and I was like, "Granted, it was only 12 of us, but
Hmm.
I still had a graduation,"
Yeah,
and
people were there. We
I
did the cap and
walked
gown and
c
everything.
cap and
Yes, my parents
gown.
were the
Yeah.
ones that handed me my diploma, but
Yep.
it was certified and then people clapped. It was a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So
Well,
it
and
was
it's
good.
funny too because there's a couple people who were like, "Is it even a legit diploma?" And I was like, "Well, yeah. Like I went to private
Yeah.
school technically." Um,
Mhm.
so it's funny. I don't know. It's just funny. I don't know if you've had too many people be
No.
like, "Well, is your
Yeah,
education
I
even
did
like
have people
legit?"
ask that. Yeah,
Okay.
because you do have to register, and for me, I don't know
Mhm.
about everyone, but we didn't register our own house as a homeschooling thing because I know some people did. We were affiliated with like I don't know, some kind of homeschool group that we would send in all like my grades and my records in, so then it was all like and then sent to the state to prove, hey, she's doing what she needs to do, like everything's
Right.
legal and good, you know. So I think that's important. I think it's always important for uh like I don't know, to still show the state or the world or just right and good of this is all what am I trying to say? Like
I get you. There's kind of
like there's
a
people.
there's a th- there's something to being like, we're actually doing this, and there's
Yeah.
great. Like I remember taking standardized testing when I was a kid that was not run by my parents. So it was like I
Mhm.
went to an actual physical place and took the bubble. I had the bubble sheet and I did the test, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
So like
bubble
getting
sheet.
to like the SATs for college and stuff was not it was intimidating because obviously it's like
Mhm.
the test that determines if you get into schools or not. But at the same time, it was less intimidating because I was already familiar with that kind of thing. And then, yeah, I also knew that because it's a private school, my parents were also submitting stuff to the government to be like, we're a
Yeah.
legit school. Here's the transcripts. Here's the whatever. But yeah, and that's something I'm gonna have some parents on at some point, and so uh, I want to ask them a little bit more about that because I don't understand the behind the scenes
Yeah,
as
it
much.
would
Right?
be
We were very
interesting to
much.
see the parent side of things with that because we we only get like a certain little glimpse because I was just thinking about this the other day because you know homeschooling like is not for the faint of heart for either parties. I feel like it is very hard and it is very challenging because you I don't know about you, but like my schooling, like it didn't like shut off at the end of the day. It you can always learn. Everything is an opportunity to learn. Um, and if we'd go on vacation, then like say we went to Florida, we did the whole Disney World thing. But before we went to Florida, I had to learn everything about it, like when it was founded, what's the state flower, all the like lighthouses that were there. I had to do reports on them. We did definitely stop at the lighthouses so I can take pictures so then I could report on it later. Like every single thing is an opportunity. I still had to read like books, like school books when we were on the plane or in the car or just whatever. So just because you're not like in school or yeah just because you're not in school it doesn't stop for us basically
Right.
like you said how you were
Yeah.
at Disneyland but you're still doing like a math
Exactly.
test like it just
Exactly.
every
Yeah.
you can always learn even if it's a sick day for other people that went to school. It's like, oh, I could just watch TV, I could just do whatever you want to. Oh, perfect, it's a sick day but you can sit up in your bed. That means you could still do your normal work, you know.
Yeah,
So
my
it
mom,
was just
it
a
was
little
like, unless
frustrating.
you were thrown up and you were on death's door, yeah, you were doing school.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was definitely a stickler. I think we were usually, I think we were allotted maybe, a, a sick day where it's like you really don't have to do anything this day, but it
Yeah.
typically lined up with the day that you're the most sick, which you're not going to do anything anyways.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah,
Or you
now as
might
an
have a
adult,
day where you don't do that much school because your mom has to run a bunch of errands. So you have to go and do the errands with her. So it's like,
yep,
cool, I didn't really do school today, but I'm probably going to make up for it like on a Saturday and do a little bit of school.
right.
You know, like it all will balance out, but it's kind of just like mishmash of when you do school, kind of when you don't do school, just as long as it kind of gets done eventually. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, I have friends that they would go hard on like a particular subject, right? So
Hmm.
they would be like, I'm gonna do math for a month and then just do a whole year's worth of math in a month. And then the next month would be something
It's
else. And
wild.
that was kind of the thing that was allowed. I couldn't do that. I was
Oh
like,
no, I
no, that
couldn't do
doesn't
that
work
either.
for me. Um, I get too bored with that. But um, but yeah, but there's definitely that flexibility, right? To be like,
Hmm.
I struggled to integrate I was learning Spanish as my foreign language in high school. I struggled to integrate that into my weekly routine. And so it became one of those things where it was like either the weekends or we're just going to hold off and you're going to do it during the summer, you know? So
Hmm.
to your point, it's like learning never stopped because, well, we're just going to push it until, you know, there's actually a time that works for it. And, you
Hmm.
know, but that was what was great. That was what was one of the great things about like with the flexibility and things like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it helped out for me because when I was like in high school, kind of end of, or not actually middle school. I think it was mainly just all high school. I had a cake decorating business that I did, and where I did like parties and I did like a few weddings and things like that. And I was, a teenager. I was supposed to be in school, but while
yeah.
like if it was like a certain day, like a party's on like, on the weekend or on a Friday night and they have a bunch of cupcakes that they want, then I can take off that whole Friday or like the Thursday before and Friday, do all my baking things and then just catch up with my work like on the weekend or whatever. So it
Yeah.
was nice. It was, to be very flexible if you have a certain activity or, dedicated to a sport or just like if you're super dedicated or like really want to get into something, it's just so nice to have that like flexibility.
I was the same way. I had a couple of my own businesses and jobs and stuff,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, it was, like, nice to have that flexibility, be like, "Tuesday at 10 AM, I'm going to this person's house for a guitar lesson, and then I'm coming home, and
Yeah.
then I'm, you know, gonna go do this thing and work in a music studio." Yeah, all that kinda stuff, so, no, that's
Hmm.
super cool. So, you are a mom now, you're married, and you have a kid. Is homeschooling something that you are thinking about? Or I know
100%
your
no.
kid is still very young.
No.
No, okay.
Yeah. My kid is 1.5, or yeah, he's 1.5 now. Um, that was never a thought. I always wanted to be a mom. I never wanted to be a
Mhm.
homeschool mom because I
Okay.
think it takes a certain, not, I don't think everyone can homeschool. And there are
Mhm.
certain friends where even I think their parents, like, maybe you should not have homeschooled your kids. Like, I don't think you have all the right knowledge kind of for this. I do think it takes certain people or certain, like, even if you don't have all the knowledge, committed people that can get you to, like, people who have like more teaching credentials or things like that.
Right.
I know with my struggles of like learning, it would be too hard for me to do. And I don't, also, I live in California and Southern California, and I own a home. And that I can only do that if me and my husband both work. And I want to give my child a certain kind of lifestyle. And if I am a stay at home mom and not bringing that income, I know that we won't be able to do those kinds of things, like go on the vacations or give them the things that they want, or like, just have
Yeah.
more of like the peace of mind life. And again, I do know some parents where they were super struggling because someone had to stay home. Not everyone, like my family, they were pretty good. My mom was like an extreme couponer, so we made it work. But there's just some people where I'm like, even as I got a little bit older, like, maybe get a part-time job, mom, so then you can like help out a little bit more, just because I don't know, I just think about the financials a lot, and my husband is a very like financial driven guy. So I just knew that I wanted to work. And also, I feel like I would lose my mind if I was a stay at home homeschool mom. So definitely props
Yeah.
to everyone that wants to do that. I do not want to. But
Hey, and that's okay. To each their
yeah.
own, you know?
Hmm.
And the cool thing is that I picked up on a few things that you said there, and that was you wanna give your kid, like, the best life possible, which
Yeah.
involves you being involved in their life. And
Hmm.
that's really ultimately, I don't really care how kids are educated. I know there's some people out there who are like, "This is the only way children should be educated is the public school system or the private school system or homeschooling."
Yeah.
I don't really care. I think each kid is different, and I think they have their unique strengths, in all different areas of education. But the thing that sets people apart is when the parent is involved and actually cares about it, right? They give a shit about their kid enough
Yeah.
to be like, I want you to succeed and I'm going to make sure that that happens. So
Mhm.
whatever that looks like, they're there for them. And so anyway, I picked up on you saying that. So
Yeah,
kudos to
it
you.
is
You're
very,
already winning in my book.
oh, thank you. But it is very interesting being a working mom because it was obviously it's just hard like to go back to work after, you have a baby and stuff. But being homeschooled, you're surrounded by people with their moms there all the time, and that's all that you know, and that's how you see them raise their children always being there. And so now once I turned into a mom, it was just there was a time where I kind of felt less of a mom because I'm like, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be there as much and things like that. But then, and I think it's just because I was surrounded by everyone always having their mom there. And then I had to rearrange my thinking and be like, okay, there's a small amount of group that is homeschooled that, always have their mom there. Granted, some people always have their mom there, even if they're not homeschooled, whatever.
Right.
But so if I was in school still, like, uh, yeah, if I was in school for like more of my life, then I probably would have seen more working moms, and I wonder if I would have felt differently and like wouldn't have felt so much mom guilt about going back to work. So I've gotten past some of it now, but yeah, I just know that I can't do it. I don't want to do it. Like I don't want to like homeschool my child except if they really need it. Like how that was not the first thought of my parents to like, oh, let's homeschool their kids. No, they put your kids in school because that's what you normally do. But when they realized that I could not do it, I could not keep up and stuff, then they did what was best for me. Obviously, for my son, if for some reason he cannot keep up with the school or just whatever, then I would take him out and figure out what to do. But I
Yeah.
think everything is by a case to case basis of like what the child is like, what the school system is like, and now there's so many more resources that like schools have like I don't know they pick up on things more if kids are like a little bit different they adjust their curriculum more like it there's just more options I feel than there
Yeah.
were back in the day when I started homeschooling. I'm grateful I was homeschooled,
Absolutely.
but I don't want to do it, and it was definitely very hard in high school, especially the relationship like with my mom. It was hard. Sorry, motorcycle went by. I'm filming in my car, people. I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, so it was hard with my mom sometimes on both ends because she has a teenager who's going through puberty, who has a lot of emotional things going on, and then she's never homeschooled a child before. She doesn't, fully know what she's doing. Yeah, as we're adults now, we realize that our parents don't really know. They're just trying to make it through it. They
Yeah.
don't know what's always going on. But when we're younger, we're
Yeah.
like, you know everything. Like, why are you ruining my life? Why are you doing this? And now that you're an adult, you realize they were just really just trying to figure it out. They were just trying to figure it
Yeah.
out. And but it was also hard for me because my mom sometimes couldn't switch off the mom mode and the teacher mode. And so sometimes I had to say, like, just stop being a teacher, like, just be my mom right now, or vice
Yeah.
versa, like, stop being my mom, just like treat me like a student, like, stop either babying me, I'm 17, like, just give me my schoolwork, things like that. So
Yeah.
there's times where it did get just rough. Yeah. Did you experience kind of hard things with your
Oh
parents when
yeah.
you were,
You're
yeah.
you're saying that and I'm like I remember the same thing. I remember my mom, especially in the first couple years, her really the struggle of like there was a lot going on. And then on
Mm-hmm.
top of that, like and it was like yeah, my mom wasn't always a nice person, you know? So, like, her and I are good today,
Mm-hmm.
and we have been good most of our life, but it's like, yeah, it's like, "Mom, you gotta turn off the teacher," or, "Mom, you gotta turn off
Yeah.
being a mom for 2 seconds real quick," and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then oh my god, going into high school and hormonal teenager stuff, like, I've
Yeah.
been
You
thinking a
can't.
lot about that and about just, like, the purity culture stuff that we grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
which I do wanna kinda bring up at some point, but the one of the things that, like, I yeah, they were just trying to figure it out. And funny enough, like, I'm the oldest, you're obviously second kid, and so
Yeah.
there's a degree to which your parent kind of understands the teenager thing when you're the second kid, because 'cause they're like, "Okay, well,
Mhm.
I've already done it once." But you tack on your brother wasn't homeschooled, so there's kind of a no break situation, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
and even by the time I was in high school, my dad worked at home, so there was no breaking between any of us. There was just, like, we all were in one house together almost 24/7,
Mhm.
and, uh and so, yeah, when someone couldn't flip it off, it was just like you were just at each other's throats, you know?
Or yeah,
And
you
sometimes you
have a
just
hard
needed.
school day and you have a hard time with your parent being the teacher for a little bit, I don't know, arguing about
Yeah,
an essay or just not wanting to do it, so you can be angry at your teacher. Normal people
yeah,
can just be angry at their teacher because they discipline or they don't like their grade or just, they're annoyed by something. But then you have to go to dinner with them, you know?
exactly,
And then you watch TV
exactly.
later that night. And it's like you
Yeah,
sometimes you just it's hard sometimes to separate things. So we would try to separate things like, okay, as soon as we turn on the show, we just won't talk and we're just like going to watch the show and then we come out happier because it's like that's like a little
yeah,
buffer or something. But yeah, it is just
yeah,
hard. And then even after graduation,
yeah. My mom tried to compartmentalize it a little bit by being like, "Okay, here's where the school stuff goes,
hmm
and then we can hide it," you know? So when school's
yeah,
over, we can kinda, like, we close the door, whatever, it's out of sight. But It w it still didn't work always, right? Because there was
no,
always
it
those
didn't.
circumstances of, like, you didn't finish on time or you just needed extra time or whatever. So it's like sometimes that closet never got closed.
Yeah, my dad didn't work at home like, yours did, so a lot of times we would just, like, "Let's just wait for dad to come home, and then he'll deal with this," he was,
Mhm.
like, the principal, kind of, and,
Right.
because 'cause we're both saying 2 different things, and we need the
Yeah.
principal to, like, bridge the gap between us type thing, so I just felt bad for my dad sometimes, like, he's just coming home from work all happy to be home, and then it's, like, instantly, like, we're in a fight, and then he's seeing us, he's like, "Ah, I have to deal with this." But,
Yeah.
yeah, and even after graduation, it was hard because my mom's been homeschooling for so long, that's, like, her whole thing, and then suddenly she doesn't have to homeschool me, so it's like, we don't need a teacher anymore, but then she doesn't know how to
Mhm.
not be a teacher, and that has been kind of
Yeah.
hard. It took a little bit of time, and there was not separation, but just, like, not as much of a closeness for a short time, but then we were able to talk it out, and it is good, but now that I'm an adult, I was just realizing, like, she was one role for so long, and then within a day, graduation, now it's gone. It's like,
Yeah.
I've put my whole life into this for my kid and now it's over and I don't really know what to do. It's like kind of like empty nest syndrome, but like not, especially because I lived at home still. Like, well, when
Yeah.
I graduated, I lived at
Yeah.
home for like 2 more years. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I
so
think
that
something
was
that
just rough.
parents don't do that I'm not gonna say my parents did not do this perfectly. However, I think there was my mom had a lot of intention behind, like, learning from previous homeschool parents about, like, all of the different transition periods within homeschooling, right? So,
hmm
your kid going from grade school to junior high to then high school and then graduating, and, like, so not only is it changing for the kid the entire time, but it's also changing for the parent. And I remember
Yeah.
one of the things that became really instrumental for her was that she had to learn that when my sister was getting close to graduating, she needed to also start pursuing her own, like, hobbies and interests, because, well, my time as a
Yeah.
teacher is about to end, so now I need to have something to do to fill all that time. And it took a long time and it was really frustrating for her, and it took a lot of just, like, trying different things and meeting new people and all this kind of thing. But she found that thing finally. But it was just this weird, like, I remember calling and home, and her being like, "I don't know what to do. I'm just, like, bored, and, like, your sister doesn't need me for school today." And I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
then I don't know, go for a walk, go to the movies, like, go do something." And she's like, "No, but I like, can't. It's, like, school time." And I'm like, "It's not." Like, you know what I mean?
It's not school
And,
time for you.
exactly, exactly. And I think parents just in general, when their kids start to, like, leave the house and become adults,
Yeah.
parents just in general also have to take that time to, like, reconnect with each other because
Definitely, yeah.
you've spent so many years as parents where it's like it's been mostly about your kid. And yeah, if you're not working on your relationship in the midst of all that, well, then is there even a relationship there? So, and that's a
Mhm.
whole nother deeper, darker
Yeah.
conversation to have with people. But but yeah. So okay. I wanted to bring this up. Let me know if you're comfortable talking about this. But you and I grew up in kind of the Christian homeschool bubble, um, which kind of involved a lot of like, it was like, I would say, kind of the tail end of purity culture, because that
Yeah.
was definitely more of a 90s thing. But, and I know you were not big into like the dances. And it previously, when I've had people on, when we talk about the dances, one of the big things was like dress code specifically for girls
Mhm.
and that kind of thing. But I don't know. Like, do you have any thoughts on that now? Like, we're sitting, I don't know, it's been over a decade at this point out of kind of growing up in that environment. But like, I'm still unpacking to this day some of the weird trauma and hangups I have around just like that stuff, you know?
Yeah. I I don't know if I have too much trauma, but I just there's just like a lot of ignorance for
Yeah.
that whole time. And like obviously we've said multiple times, you learn everything from the TVs and movies, because it's not like I could really talk to my friends about this kind of stuff because they didn't know. Like none of us knew, none of us had boyfriends. The the dating pool in homeschooling is so small, and you have like, like there's like five guys that are your age in your group, and you're like, I don't know about any of them, but there's one that's just slightly cuter than all of them, so at least we could say we have a crush on someone, you know. But
Yeah.
so it's not like we were really dating or doing anything like that. I remember, but yeah, so with movies, you, that's where I got like a lot of my knowledge and things like that. And luckily, because my brother was so much older, and because I did grow up Christian, but I wasn't like restricted from too many things. And since my brother was older, we would watch kind of like olderish things in our house. Like if he was maybe senior in high school or a little bit older, I would watch things that were like more seniors would watch sometimes, because we were just trying to find something that we could all watch as a family. So I was kind of exposed to a little bit more than say some of my friends who would watch things that I feel like a lot of them would watch things that were under their age range, because we're not allowed to watch that. Like a lot of people like, we're not allowed to watch Harry Potter. We're not allowed to watch, any
Right.
things with like heavy makeout things in it. But my parents, they're like, we
Right.
don't really care. You're fine. Everything's good there. But just the thing is that I feel like not just homeschool, but any Christian culture, you don't really talk about those things like with your parents, or um, like sex education class isn't really a thing that you talk
What is
about.
that?
I remember I talked slightly to my mom about it. I got a tiny bit of things that happen with the women, and I didn't know anything about guys, like whatsoever. And I remember I was asking her a little bit about guy things, and then she gave me a book, and it had pictures, and like that was about it. And because we didn't talk too much about that stuff. It wasn't until I was a little bit
Yeah.
older that we slightly talked a little bit more. But it thank God the internet existed, because like I
Oh my
just
God. Yeah.
looked up everything
So,
on the internet, probably lots of things I should not have
yeah.
looked up. But I'm now
My,
almost 30, so I can say this now. But yeah, I looked up lots of
yeah.
different things. That's where mainly all of my sex education came from, is from that. And uh, my cousin, who shout out to Keely. You should be watching this, Keely. But my cousin, when I was 20, I think I was 21 when I moved out, and my cousin just graduated and she was 18, and she came from Washington, and we lived together. And she's 18 and she's teaching me everything because she knows the world and she's experienced with the world. And I just felt like such a little noob not knowing anything. And I felt like, I don't know, it just felt really kind of degrading that a younger person was I should be the older sister and telling her things, and then she's the one that is
Mhm.
explaining everything in great detail to me, you know, because like I just
Yeah.
don't know anything. Like she made me go on dating apps and stuff because I didn't even know how to date. I don't know how to talk to boys other than like friends because I don't know how to flirt, you know, because we only had like 5 kids and we've
Yeah.
known them for our whole lives. How do we flirt? You know?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, it's interesting because, like, my dad gave me, like, the birds and the bees talk, and I feel
Hmm.
like, I think he did an okay job, but it's very, like, I don't know. It's kind of clinical and the like, well, here's how things happen. It's like, well, yeah, that's biology. Like I've taken
Hmm.
biology class. I get it. Um, you know, and then they do the really awkward, like, your body is changing. And like,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, and I hate myself for it. Um, but, um, but yeah, like a serious lack of sex ed because within kind of like the purity culture thing was like it's kind of an abstinence only teaching is really what it is.
Yeah,
And then on top
really.
of it is like in addition to abstinence only, it's also like it puts on this pedestal like virginity is like this crazy achievement, right?
Oh my
Which
gosh,
is
yeah,
almost
and,
like
like,
oh,
if
just like
the amount of conferences that, like, all women or not all women, all girl conferences that I went to weren't women, we were in high school and stuff, you know, of just, like, they would just say so much how you know, virginity is a gift, and if you give this gift away, you're gonna feel devastated, and you're gonna feel like you lost something. You're gonna feel like a terrible, like just really pushing it in on us about just how awful it is. And around this time, like around the age of like 15, 16, a bunch of my girlfriends were getting the purity rings. Like that was like a big thing, and my parents were asking me if I wanted one, and I was like, I wasn't really feeling like I wanted one, but I knew they kind of wanted me to have one, so I did get one. But then eventually, I did tell them like I think I wore it like for just a few days, and then I said, I try to be a really honest person, and I don't want to lie to my parents because you respect me and I respect you, but I don't want to wait. And I don't want to do this life. Like I'm not gonna have sex now. Like, also, who am I gonna sex with? You know, there's like no one here. But like, I'm not gonna,
yeah.
I'm not gonna date anyone. I'm not gonna do these things. But I know myself as a person that I'm not gonna wait until I'm married to do this. But I will wait until the time is right for me later on. And and so then I stopped doing my purity ring, and then a lot of my friends they had their purity rings and they would still wear them, but I knew for a fact that they were not pure. They're just too
Oh
scared to
yeah.
like not wear them. It's like I know what you do. I don't even know why. Does that ring burn you? Is Satan burning you right now? Because I know that you know that's not happening.
Oh my gosh, I'm envisioning like, vampires being scared of crosses, but
Yeah.
I same deal. My parents, I don't feel like they never pushed the purity ring thing on me. I had friends who
Well,
had one,
what
but I
about your
got made
sister?
fun
Is it
of.
more of like a girl thing, or did your sister
Um,
anything? Or
I don't
because I don't
think
really know
she
guys that had purity
did.
rings.
I knew a good number of guys who did.
Oh, really? Okay.
And what's funny, I don't feel like we talked about it a lot, but it was just kind of one of those things where it's like,
No, you
oh,
don't
okay,
talk
like,
about it. You don't talk about
John
it too
John
much.
got a purity
Yeah.
ring, Ben got a purity ring, this guy got a purity ring. And
Mhm.
then I got made fun of for not having one. And I was like,
Oh,
well, one, I
really?
don't wear jewelry. And two, me wearing a ring, I just felt like it was weird. I'm a 15-year-old wearing a ring on my like wedding ring finger or
Mhm.
whatever, or the opposite hand or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's
It's the
I
opposite
also
hand,
I
but
don't I'm married now, but I don't wear a wedding ring. Like and
mhm.
that has to do more with just like when we got married, I worked a job that I couldn't really wear a ring,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm so used to not wearing a ring. It's like it's a commitment between me and that person. And that's we know that and that's it.
Mhm.
But the purity ring thing was so weird because yeah, I got made fun of for not having one. But to your point, I knew so many of these guys who were doing things that were unpure. We were watching porn, we were jerking
Yeah.
off, we were like being disgusting little I say disgusting, but like we
No,
were
I know
being
what you get.
normal
Yeah.
boys. We were being normal boys and then being
Yeah.
told that that was like we should be ashamed of ourselves, kind of a thing. And I think there was a lot more there was this weird what I've realized is I feel like there was this weird pressure on girls to be like, it's your responsibility to keep boys pure. And then there was no responsibility
Yeah,
heaped
there was
on the
nothing back to
boys
the guys that I knew of.
to be like, you have to have this kind of like guarding of your thoughts or like
Mhm.
understanding of like when is and isn't a like sexual experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can go to the beach and hang out with people and girls can be in bikinis and I can recognize that that's not a sexual like thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're just hanging out at the beach. Um but that was never taught. That was something that like came later in life where it was like, yeah, it's
Because we were
context clue of
also
like
taught
this
to
is
be
not.
like so ashamed of our bodies that like
Yeah.
every church camp that I went to, you obviously you couldn't wear bikinis, but you had to wear one pieces or the tankinis, which is like, bikini top, but like it's almost like a
Yeah.
shirt that you would wear. And they'd
Right.
prefer
It's like
if
a
you
tank
and you
top
have to
kind of
wear
a thing.
shorts. You couldn't wear like
Yeah.
you couldn't wear bathing suit bottoms. You always had shorts on. And yet guys could do whatever they want to. Like they didn't have to wear a shirt. Like and their bathing suit trunks were always hanging so low that you could like still see
Yep.
like things, or like sometimes it's like, ew, I can see your butt, like pull a plumber's butt, like pull up your pants, please. But there was never any talking to for them, but there was always talking to for the girls. And so like we aren't even giving the guys a chance to, even be kind of immune to it. Because if you hide
Right.
something for so long and then suddenly if it's revealed, like, oh my gosh, I have to stare, like I have to sexualize that. But if they
Yeah.
just are already growing up with it, like, maybe going to the beach like a normal person and seeing normal swimsuits, then they don't think of anything about it because it's just a swimsuit. But I don't know, that's just my thought on
Right.
that.
Right. No, that's an interesting thing because like there was so much shame and guilt associated with it. And so I work with these ladies now who they primarily work with college kids and do a lot with sexual traumas and things like that. And but one of the things that they've talked a lot about is purity culture and guys, wrestling with. They don't learn anything. They don't learn consent. They don't learn anything like that. And then by the time they get there, that's can sometimes be why guys go off the deep end. That's just in general sometimes why people go off the deep end and then they get really
Yeah.
hooked into like hookup culture and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things one of these ladies always says is that she always says jerking off saves lives. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Because
That makes sense though, a
because
little
I grew
bit.
up that was like such a like no 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 don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
like that's so bad, like push any sexual feelings down, kind of a thing. And I realized I'm like, no, that's like such an actually like a great thing because it, when you're an adult, obviously there's a little bit more control of like understanding how our bodies are reacting to things. But yeah, as a
Mm-hmm.
high schooler, it's like the other thing is that guys and girls getting turned on. Guys is there's an external thing that happens that it's very
Mm-hmm.
obvious when a guy is turned on.
Yeah, I can't hide that.
With girls, it's a lot easier for you guys to hide things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other thing too, is that like we're told like you can't pop a boner. However, like it's gonna happen with like the gust of wind. It's like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you then have to be ashamed of yourself and there's nothing you can do to like deal with it. So you just have to like ride it out. And it's like this is again, it all comes down to like these are things that need to be talked about more in the
Mm-hmm.
Christian community
Definitely.
and in the homeschool Christian community because it's like eh, by the time I got married, there were so many things I didn't know. And yeah, the internet was my best friend but the internet is also a very vast place with so much information that's both good, bad. That like sometimes you don't know whether what you're reading is actually like worth it or not,
Mm-hmm.
or good.
Yeah,
Um,
like my husband's had to steer me straight for lots of different
mhm,
things where like I thought something was true, like even not even just talking about like the sexual stuff that we were talking about, just anything in general, because like
right.
with that outside knowledge of just anything, because you're kind of like in this bubble for a lot of the things, you just kind of you learn what either your parents or your friends' parents, because a lot of our teachers were our friends' parents, teach you. So you want to learn more about the world, and so there's just so much that like my husband or my husband's friends, which are now my friends, are like, oh, none of that is true, or like you do you only think this, or even like
Yeah.
again with the movies, I would think this is how it is, right? Like this is what life is like, or this is what high school is like, or like you guys did this, right? And like none of those things, all that is true. I've never been to
Hmm.
a high school that does that,
Right.
any of those things. So they just really blew my world. And it's just, it's so, there's been so much learning that has been happening in like the past few years of just what I think is true and what um, versus like what I was just taught or just exposed to, and being
Yeah.
able to like think my own thoughts of things has been really weird.
We obviously grew up in the bubble. We grew up in a bubble.
Hmm.
And it sounds like your parents were maybe a little bit more lenient than some homeschool parents. But did you have this feeling? I had this feeling for the longest time that everybody inside of this bubble, we all just kind of agreed on everything. We all like, this is the way things were, whether it came to sexuality, whether it came
Oh my
to
gosh.
just the way the world
Yes.
worked. Like, we all just kind of sat in this place where I believed in my heart that everybody was just in agreement. And then now to have more of these conversations with people, I'm like, holy crap, none of us really agreed on anything. We did, but we didn't. But we would all do this lip service to this, like, this is what is the truth. And it's like, but behind the scenes, no, none of us maybe believed that. I think some of us did, but like, did you feel that way at all?
So yes and no, because yes, I did feel like everyone, it's kind of like we're like lemmings where we're all doing like the same thing. We're all kind of thinking the same thing for a lot of it. Um, but I thought there was something sometimes wrong with me. Like I didn't always fit in because I would always think a little bit differently than some of the people that are there, or like how we were taught kind of. So I remember when Obama was running for president, and I was a part of like, it was some like government class that I was a part of. And the topic of like gay marriage came up because Obama was, pro gay marriage, and I thought that there was nothing wrong with it. But in my class, there was a bunch of Mormons also, so it was not only Christians, but we're also now involved in Mormons in there too. And so I we had to write a report, like a persuasive essay about who
Hmm.
you should vote for and stuff. What was it, like McCain and Obama?
Right.
And single
Yeah.
person was McCain, and I was the only one who did Obama, and everyone was looking at me weird because I did Obama, because I agreed with the policies, but also was very supportive of the gay marriage. I had my friends like try to talk me out of it and stuff like that. Like like you could tell it was everything that their
Wow.
parents have told them, like because it was almost verbatim, because
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't use these kinds of words. Like these words are,
Right.
they're too big for you. But and same with it, like, so I just felt like I just didn't fit in that way, where like it was like more a progressive mind. But then also I was in a creative writing class, and we had to do a book report, and I did mine on the Hunger Games, and this was before the movies came out. This was like, a long time ago, where the books were like, they were popular, but not like obviously as popular as when like the movies were announced. But
Right.
yes, it was obviously a Christian writing, creative writing thing, and I was writing a book about a children murdering each other, essentially, like for
Right.
sport.
Yeah.
And since the books were not popular at all, the teacher had to talk to my mom and be like, "So, do you know that she's reading about these books? Like, I read the book report. This seems awful." And my mom's like, "Yeah, I read them with her. Like, they're good."
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
turn into movies, and now everyone is like super obsessed with them, including everyone in the homeschool group. They were like all obsessed with it. So there was times where I just felt like everyone was having the same mind, and I didn't fully fit in the homeschool world, but I didn't fit in the public school world either, where I
Hmm.
just didn't, sometimes I just didn't know where I
Right.
belonged, because I wasn't as sheltered, but then also I wasn't as exposed. So it was like a weird
Right.
balance, where sometimes I had to like, the whole fake it till you make it for both accounts type of thing.
Yeah. I remember there was, I don't know, in California there was the law that was, I think it was when gay marriage became legalized, was really when
Yeah,
a big part of that conversation happened. And yeah, it
so
was kind
much.
of around when Barack was becoming president and stuff like that. And I remember having taken, yeah, American government class or whatever. And in my eyes, it was the role of the American government to uphold the law of the land, not the law of the Bible.
Hmm.
And so I was kind of like, well, I don't see anything wrong with them legalizing gay marriage because, well, they're doing what's best for all people, not just a select group of people.
Yeah.
And I remember also, yeah, getting weird backlash for that and being like, I don't know. It was weird. It was definitely, but it kind of puts you in this weird, like, you almost kind of just shut up about it because you're like, well,
Yeah,
nobody's gonna agree with me, and I don't
and
want
these
to
are the
be the
only
odd
friends that
man
I
out. And
have, so I don't want them to be
it's
mad at
the only
me.
friends I have. It's a clique. I don't want to be on the outskirts of it because then
Mhm.
I'm really screwed, right? It's like then who am I gonna talk to, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing, and it's hard because obviously, like, you weren't homeschooled for exclusively religious reasons, and neither was
Yeah.
I. But it ended up playing like a big role in the communities that we got involved in. And
Yeah, because most homeschooling communities are religious based, like all the
right.
ones that, because I was a part of a few different of them, because I would live more in the LA area, and then I moved to Ventura where
Mhm.
you were, and that's where I had that group. But still, I was a part of quite a few different homeschool groups, and they're all the same. I mean, I'm sure there was other ones, and since I grew up religious, like that was obviously we're gonna find a homeschool group that was that. But I, now there's probably a lot of them, but I back then I really don't think there was that many that were not at least any sort
Yeah.
of religion base.
At
So
least not in
we
the
were all
area we
just
lived
thinking the same.
in. Yeah,
Definitely
at
not in the
least not
area we lived in.
because it was like, yeah, it was Christian, Catholic, and maybe a Mormon group. But yeah, it was very, yeah, everybody was religious to some degree, and it was funny
Yeah.
because I felt like we were part of, I feel like Achieve was arguably kind of the wokest of the groups because like we did school
Hmm.
dances and stuff, which
Yeah.
was a no-no in other
Because
groups.
CASA didn't do those. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
they were
And
strict there.
yeah, and even families from Casa who did were kind of like looked down on by other Casa. I don't know. There's all these weird dynamics that go on inside of the homeschool world. And it's weird to look back now and be like, "Whoa, this is so weird." Because back then it just was kind of like, I don't want to say it was normal, but we just were used to seeing that kind of a thing
Hmm.
play out, right? And now it's like looking back
Yeah.
on it, it's like, "Whoa, what was going on there?" you
Yeah.
know. Well, um, I feel like I've talked your ear off. But I
Yeah, it's all good.
appreciate you
I think
so
I
much.
hear my kid in the house now.
Yeah,
I think he's
I
awake. He's squealing, making noise.
exactly. I was like, I promised to try to keep it 45 minutes to an hour, and here we are at about an hour and 10. And
It's all good.
but
I can
Emily, I
always
wanted to
talk
say
more.
thank you. I wanted to say thank you for coming on. And is there anything that's come up while we've been talking that has like sparked a memory? I don't want to cut you off if you've got something else, um, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you for having this kind of platform where the homeschool kids can talk about these kinds of things. And it's just been so interesting with the podcast that I have watched so far, how all of us have like kind of a different story, or like maybe they start off the same, like some of them start off the same, but we're all living like the same, well, so far, because a lot of the people that you've had on here are like friends or in the same world together back then. It's been like, I had ideas of them, of all having like the same life or same world, but it's been so cool to see that even though we all like generally we're in the same homeschool world, we all have such different stories, and it's just such different feelings that happen for the same scenarios, but we all came out of it different or have different perspectives. So thank you for having this place to share. It's very fun.
Well, good. I'm glad.
That's
I'm
all.
glad. No, and it's been cool because people like yourself who reach out and say, I got something I want to share. That's what really makes this show be awesome. I started it thinking that I was going to struggle to get 15 people, which was my ultimate goal to come on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And at the point of recording this, I'm pretty sure we have broken through that.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah, which has been awesome. So, having conversations like this is great, and especially reconnecting with people who maybe we weren't the best of friends back then, but we've
Yeah, we
become
weren't the
friends.
closest, but obviously, as long as we have that one connection, we've
Yeah,
we've already made like a bunch of what's it called? Just like, I guess, yeah, more connections right now because we have one solid one. There's just
right.
more things that we can talk about.
Absolutely.
So,
So, without further ado, if you've got a story you want to share, or whether it's with an audience or whether it's just with me, hit me up. You can reach me on Instagram. That's EXHS Club. Or you can email me at EXHSclub@gmail.com. Tell me what you got going on. I'd love to connect. I love hearing from all you guys. And, do all of the normal podcasty things. Listen to the whole episode, rate, review, subscribe, send it to a friend. Because, that's what we're here for. We're here for reconnecting and catching up with old friends. So until next time, we'll see ya.